By my count, there have been 3 very direct and very accidental hints about the San Francisco puzzle. Number 1, Sandy tells a story about Byron taking her on a date to a place called the Tonga Room. She says during the date, Byron says he has to leave to bury something. Leaves the date, comes back about 15 minutes later, his job's done, date continues. Number 2, when filming the San Francisco episode of Expedition Unknown, Josh says he gets a hint from one of the book creators that says the letter F is very important. And number 3, when Gerald Gay faked the San Francisco find, John Michaels had to call around and verify whether or not the cask he found was correct. This was before we had pictures of anything. So John Michaels calls a bunch of the creators of the book and tells them San Francisco may have been found. And one of the creators gets very excited and says, wow, he must have figured out the Fairmont clue. Which leaves me with one lingering question. Why the f*** aren't you people looking closer to the
Fairmont, San Francisco. Timeless elegance. A hotel so grand, they built a city around it.
Oh, God, this is a question I've been asking people for like 6 years now. This current video that you're watching is basically a companion piece to an audio podcast that me, Brett, and Matt recorded. It explains and it goes through a sort of, a project that most of the podcast team has been working on for literally 6 years based on those 3 hints. We figured like if we're getting 3 pieces of information from 3 different people that are all pointing to the same thing, like maybe we should take a look at it. So, the following is sort of what we found. These are just a quick run through with, some visual examples so that when you listen to the longer story podcast episode, whatever, you'll at least be able to visualize what the hell we're talking about. I'm going to take you guys a little closer. We're going to take you to a different camera angle because this isn't going to work. I got to be at my desk to do this. All right. That's a little better. I just got to be able to see what I'm talking about here. There's a lot of stuff. We started this adventure, like I said, 6 years ago, and, it was me and Brett and then this guy named Golden Gate. We all 3 of us hooked up under this idea, if these 3 pieces of information have come out, they've got to mean something. There's got to be something there. So we started grasping at straws in this general area, trying to figure out what. And Golden Gate latched on pretty quickly to the fact that this building has a pretty prominent stone wall with a door in it. I'll show you that here. Actually, in addition to just showing you pictures, I'm going to have this map. And every time we talk about something, I'm going to take a photo of the thing and show it to you. And then I'm going to update the map with where that thing is. Because I feel like it's important for you to know the scale of the area that we're talking about. We're not talking about go to Golden Gate Park and then go down the road to, whatever and make a left and head 4 miles to whatever park. I want you to see how close all of this is. Also, keep in mind, this is just a quick and dirty to show you what things look like and where they are. If you want the full sort of breakdown of the idea behind all of this and the 6-year story or whatever, you're going to have to listen to the podcast at 12treasures.com. It's going to be linked below. Second, okay, so we've got the Stonewall's door. That doesn't mean anything. There's plenty of stone walls with doors. What about the air smells sweet? People think that that's supposed to invoke emotion or whatever, or maybe it's just a candy shop called the Sweet Corner. You see, back in the 80s, there was this place called Blum's, and it was this big candy shop all over San Francisco. Their flagship store was in the Fairmont, and they had this place called the Sweet Corner. And right outside of this door was this sign that said Blum's Sweet Corner. And Blum's had this, at a bakery, you have to exhaust your ovens and things somewhere. So they had this exhaust vent that would pump this sweet smell, cookies and cinnamon rolls, and it would pump it out of this exhaust vent that was literally 2 foot above your head. If you were walking out of this Stonewall's door, it would be 2 feet above your head and 3 feet to the right. It was blowing right in your face. The concierge at the Fairmont said, no matter what, when you walked out this door, you were just engulfed in this sort of this candy bakery smell. Sweet Corner. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, George, these puzzles aren't that simple. They're complex. They got math involved and geometry. Your next 2 lines. high posts are 3. What could that be? It could be like posts ascending to the heavens telling you 3 has to be some sort of mathematical formula. And then you've got education and justice. I mean, maybe you have to educate yourself somewhere like Stanford before you go to court for your justice, or maybe it's just this. If you're standing in the Stonewall's door and you're smelling the air, smelling sweet from the sweet corner, you're looking for 3 high posts and you're looking for education and justice, you look across the street and see the Stanford Court. Decide to walk over there because it's not too far away. We're coming up on 2 of the, by far, the most overthought lines for any secret puzzle ever. Sounds from the sky near Ace's High. Let's take these one at a time. When you're standing at this spot now, you don't see anything. In fact, everything that we're going to talk about today, except for like the Stanford Court and the Stonewall's door, is basically gone. You got to be there in 1981 to see any of it. So if you're standing in front of the Stanford Court now, you don't see anything. If you were standing there in 1981, you would see this. The KSFO radio station sign. Inside of this corner of Fairmont, directly across the street from the Stanford Court, was the headquarters of KSFO, which has an interesting tagline.
For the sound of San Francisco on KSFO.
Then what if I were to tell you if you kept looking past the KSFO sign directly down Powell Street, you'll find another sign, which is just a giant A with wings on it. The Fairmont's parking garage was ran by Ace Parking. It was like originally it was Alliance Oil or something, and they had service centers everywhere, and they manned parking garages and gas stations and all kinds of stuff. It was like a local San Francisco thing. If you weren't from San Francisco, you wouldn't really know anything about it, but there it was, their giant sign. Now, to be fair, we can't find pictures of the sign past like 1974 or something, but we had Linda Spaulding look at property records, and they were there. And then we asked the Fairmont people, and in the 80s, yeah, Ace Parking was still there with this giant sign with an A on it, with wings. Jesus. Makes me think of something some guy said once. I don't know. Kind of sucks, right? Like, I know you guys are going to be like, oh, well, what about all this in the image? Or what about that in the image? And what about these letters that I see? And what about blah, 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 blah? And that's fine. This video is not really to lay out some grandiose theory to you. We have a podcast that sort of walks you through all of our ideas and what sort of happened in this 6-year-long process. I will go ahead and preemptively answer a couple of questions for you. People have often thought that Angel Island is in the image in the shape of a rose. And if you're standing at the corner of California and Powell and you look down Powell Street, I believe it's north, you see Angel Island. And people are like, well, what about the cable car that's in the image? Well, the corner of California and Powell is the intersection of the cable car lines for San Francisco. And if you head south on Powell, you end up at the cable car turnaround, which most people see as like the tabletop in the image. And if you head north on Powell, you end up at the turnaround, which again, tabletop at Ghirardelli Square, oddly enough, which is nice that they put that little GH in the painting to sort of give us a boundary. But then people have often said, like, what about Lincoln in the image? I mean, John Michaels even said once when he was at John Palancar's house, he was like, people wonder if that's JFK or if it's Lincoln. And he said, the whole house erupted with Lincoln. Well, if you're standing there in the corner of California and Powell and you head west, you dead end into, Lincoln Park. I mean, these are all just sort of ideas, but they're at least grounded and they're backed up with things like all of those mysterious shapes that you see in the figure's dress. You can find on the corner of California and Powell. I think we're going to leave it to you guys to find some of them. You might as well not give everything away. One of them's pretty prominently on top of the cable car building at the corner of California and Powell. That one's really fun. So if you get to the end, and you followed along on Google Maps or whatever, you're behind this building and you're in a really there's a tall planter box. It would be a giant step to get up in there. You're wondering, what do we do from there? Well, the answer is you don't do anything. We've taken GPRs and through various measures gotten permission, which we tell that story in the podcast, to clear out all of the planter boxes all along the Fairmont. The Fairmont's completely clear, and the Fairmont wants everyone to know that they are aware of this puzzle, and they will keep a lookout for a cask anytime they do maintenance or whatever. They don't want you to email them any emails. They're just going to ignore, and if they find a cask, they're immediately going to call the podcast people. So maybe leave them alone. They've also said that if they catch anybody illegally digging on their property, they're going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law and sue you for damages. And I should point out that the couple of times that me and Brett have been at the Fairmont, we've had police on us pretty quickly. And this planter box, actually, most of the planter boxes have these really big security cameras on top of them. So, be cautious of that. That's really it for this. Just listen to the podcast episode, take all of this information that we've given you, listen to the podcast episode, and hopefully it leads you down a new path in San Francisco, maybe something that doesn't involve geometry. I also want to take a second to thank everybody that worked on this with us. Like, this was legitimately a 6-year-long process, and it involved a lot of members of the community doing a lot of things, whether they knew they were helping us or not. And those people, like, we couldn't have done any of this without them. And this was probably one of the most fun adventures I've been on with Brett ever. We couldn't have done any of this without members of the community. So I'd like to, take a moment to thank each one of them. Because I don't know, this has been fun. This is, to me, this adventure is what The Secret is about. And I couldn't have done it without all of you guys. So thank you.